Hi, elementary teachers. It's Andrea Haas with Elm Tree Education, and this is another Lit Bit segment where I answer your literacy instruction questions. These questions are submitted by teachers like you. They go to the link down below and they submit them, and then I pull some out and answer them here. Okay, let's get started with today's question. I'll move myself over here so you can see it. Okay, how can we include silent reading in addition to all the other important reading components we need to include in our instruction? Isn't that just the age-old question for teachers? How do we get it all in? How do we fit it all in? Especially when you're an elementary teacher and you have a lot of different content areas you need to cover. So, in my attempt to answer this question, I'm going to have to say, obviously, I don't know your context, so I can't say anything specific. So everything that I'm going to say is going to be in pretty general statements. But I do hope I'll give you some tips that will give you something to think about. And then if you're somebody who really needs to strategize your schedule, then book a complimentary call with me and let's look at your schedule and try to figure it out. So that could be something that you could do to follow up if this is not enough of an answer for you. Okay, so also, my other caveat before I get started is I sure hope that when you think of literacy instruction, you are following the entire body of research on how kids learn to read. When folks use science of reading, lately, that's actually coming to mean something where we're really only talking about phonemic awareness and phonics. But the true whole entire body of research, which by the way has really kind of exploded in the last few decades, exponentially to where it used to be, covers much more than just phonemic awareness and phonics. So I do hope that you are getting your information from trusted sources on truly what we should be doing if we're using research-based practices in the classroom. So I'll just say that right there. Okay, now here are my 3 tips on making time for silent reading in your classroom. Things just for you to consider. 1, the research does say that we actually do need to make time for kids to independently read. So it really does need to be a priority. I know some of you have mandates. Some of you have curricula that would say otherwise. I know there's a lot of rhetoric out there about silent reading. For some reason, it's gotten a bad name, which doesn't even make sense because really to get better at anything, you have to practice it, but I digress. However, that silent reading doesn't mean it's willy-nilly silent reading. So my second tip is that we really want to make sure that instead of having something like drop everything and read, deer time, where my kids from the 80s, that's what it used to be called, or SSR time, whatever that was, where it was just time for you just to read for enjoyment. Instead of having that kind of time, I would say make that time be purposeful. So it's not just time to practice and not have anything to do with it while you're practicing, because that's true that if kids are struggling and then they're being asked to read silently, they're probably just going to fake read or continue to switch books out and those kinds of things. They need to actually have a purpose for their reading. So that's my 3rd tip. When you give them a purpose for their reading, make it student-centered. And this is what I mean. To have that purpose for reading be relevant to the student, it actually needs to be attached to something that means something to them. Why do they need to be doing this, XYZ, that you want them to do while they're reading or after they read? And so when you think about that, something to aspire to would be that you would have had conversations with each one of your students. You've really gotten to know them deeply as readers, not just what the assessments that you're mandated to give say, but also like what's their identity as a reader, their beliefs about reading, what do they enjoy, what are their interests, what do they want to learn more about, if you take all that information and then you would sit down and you would have a goal setting, or I like to call it intention setting conference with the kiddo. And you would have that child, as much as possible, lead the conversation into identifying what they think they need to do next. What are they getting close to, but they're just not quite doing it yet? And set that goal. Have it be an attainable goal that is realistic, as long as they now have a focused time that they're going to work on practicing that skill. Perhaps you've taught them some strategies in small group, and you're going to give some suggestions of some strategies they could try, but there's actually an action plan in place. So we don't just set the goal and then say, okay, that's a great goal, and then don't check up on it. No, there's an action plan on when are you going to work on this? Who else needs to know? How else can I support you? When are we going to check in on this again to see how you're progressing? So that would be my tips. Yes, they must read, because it's what the research says. It shouldn't be just, drop everything and read, silent reading time, but that it has a purpose. I don't know why that there's balloons going across my screen. This is very interesting. Okay. And that we have the purpose that we have co-created with more emphasis on the student setting the intention or setting the goal. Sorry, I'm very distracted by the balloons that just happened. That is funny. I don't know why it happened. I'll have to figure that out in a second. Okay. In the meantime, let's get back to our topic here. Okay. So, like I said, if you want any more support on something specific with your schedule, then please schedule a complimentary 30-minute Zoom with me where we can sit down and we can go through an issue that you have in particular that you want to strategize. That you can find that way to book me at elmtreeed.com, or just reach out to me or write a comment, whatever, get a hold of me, and then I'll get you that link to schedule it. And then in the meantime, if you have any other literacy instruction questions for me, please submit them at this bit.ly link down below, Elm Lit Bits, and I just might pick yours to be the next one I answer in one of these segments. Okay. Take care, everyone. Talk to you next week.